Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the webinar on Getting into Food Service, Going to Market. My name is Dolores Serafin, and I work for Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation with the Food and Bioprocessing branch. I will be your host for today's webinar. Also joining us will be Marguerite Thiessen, who is our Business Development Officer with my group, and she will be moderating the webinar. During this webinar, you will learn about the different ways to go to market and how to be prepared to enter the food service marketplace. Following our keynote speaker will be a panel discussion with experts in the field. Attendees will have an opportunity to participate in the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Before we start though, here are a few housekeeping items. If you would like to ask a question, please click on the Q&A symbol at the top of your screen. I will make sure our presenters address all of the questions at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and the link will be sent to you in an email after the live webinar. Our webinar today is scheduled for 90 minutes. We are anticipating approximately 75 minutes of presentation time and 15 minutes for your questions at the end. Our speakers today are Jeff Dover, Jeff Clark, Jeff Lowrick, and Darren Drew, or as we affectionately call it, the Jeff and Darren Show. Jeff Dover with FsSTRATEGY Incorporated received his Bachelor of Commerce degree in Hotel and Food Administration from the University of Guelph in 1989. He earned his MBA from Wilfrid Laurier University in 1996, where he won the School of Business and Economics Graduate Gold Medal for Academic Achievement. Jeff also holds the Certified Management Consultant and International Society of Hospitality Consultants designations. Jeff has also completed the Walt Disney World College program. Jeff has been consulting to the hospitality and tourism industry since 1998. He was most recently a director with the HLT Advisory Incorporated, a management consulting firm specializing in all sectors of the hospitality industry. He was also a director with KPMG's Hospitality, Leisure, and Tourism practice after beginning his career with Panel Care Forster Consulting Incorporated. Prior to his consulting career, Jeff held hospitality industry management positions in hotel, attractions, and food service sectors. He represents the 5th generation of his family to work in Canada's hospitality industry. Jeff has also provided advisory services to clients in the food service, convention center, lodgings, attractions, gaming, and tourism sections. He has managed engagements in every province in Canada, as well as Europe, Asia, Africa, and the United States and the Caribbean. Jeff Clark is a strategic business leader who has spent over 40 years building successful businesses across North America in the food and beverage industry. He is known as a builder and a successful creator of exceptional organizational cultures with a clear focus on purpose, organization, visions, and values. He believes in servant leadership and is a strong advocate of building teams with exceptional people passionate about serving customers internally and externally. He strongly believes that a great team with skills, knowledge, and enthusiasm can accomplish truly amazing things together. Most recently, he was president and CEO of Kitchen Partners, a highly successful food processing business based in Edmonton, Alberta. Prior to joining Kitchen Partners in 2005, Jeff held executive positions at Labatt Breweries in Canada, US, and South America. In addition to 15 years at Labatt's, he has held senior national leadership positions with Maple Leaf Foods and Cavendish Farms. Jeff Lowrick started his journey in the food industry with Cargill Meat Solutions as a food service account manager in the wholesale meat processing industry. After 7 years with Cargill, Jeff got the opportunity to join Gordon Food Services marketing team in Calgary. He started as a product specialist and then has held various leadership roles in marketing and procurement with Gordon Food Services along the way. He is now leading the marketing team for the Prairie region at Gordon Food Services. Darren Drew is the executive chef at Coast Edmonton Plaza by APA. Darren graduated from the University of Alberta with a Bachelor's of Economics. He started working in hospitality in 1979. Darren started the kitchen apprenticeship program with the Westin Hotels in Edmonton and Vancouver. He has worked at many hotels, even as far away as Bermuda and the Bahamas. As an executive chef, he has worked for the Sheraton Hotels, Panorama Resort, Ramada, Renaissance Hotels, and Coast Hotels. I will now hand it over to Jeff Dover to start us out.
Thank you, Dolores, and welcome everybody. We're going to spend some time today talking about getting food and beverage products into the food service industry. I'll start with a little background on the industry and then talk about the various players and just sales strategies that will help you have success in getting these products into the industry. So there's a few trends I'd like to talk about first. First of all, food service is a huge opportunity for food and beverage companies. In Canada, the estimated sales in the food and beverage sector is 95.6 billion, and that's last year, so it accounts for COVID. It's certainly which slowed things down. The average cost of sales in the food service industry in Canada is 34.5%, meaning that the opportunity Canada-wide is about $33 billion. Alberta, the opportunity within the province is about $4.1 billion. So there's a huge opportunity there. If you have a product that's successful retail-wise, you might want to consider the food service industry as an opportunity to grow. Trends to consider when selling to the food service industry. I think one thing that, and this predates COVID by a lot, if you look at this, the CPI for food, the yellow line, and then we have the menu inflation for full service restaurants and limited service restaurants. You can see that the prices on menus have been growing faster than the prices for food. I'm sure everybody on the webinar today is aware of the inflation that we're experiencing in Canada and the food sector in particular. And I think what we're starting to see is that consumers are starting to push back on some of these menu prices. So that's something to consider when you're proposing a product. You might want to provide cost savings if that's something that you can position your product at. The biggest indicator of success or how much the food service industry is going to do is the Consumer Confidence Index. In October of this month, the Consumer Confidence Index declined to 48.51, and that's the sixth straight month of decline. It peaked, the highest Consumer Confidence Index since they started tracking it was in the fall of 2019. So during the early months of pandemic in April, the consumer confidence was in the low 36 point range. So it has been worse, but consumers are a little concerned right now, and they're cutting back on spending, and one of the places where they're cutting back on is food service. I'm sure everybody here isn't surprised that labor is a challenge. It's always been hard to be cooks. Dolores mentioned I'm the fifth generation in my family in the hospitality industry. We've been talking about the labor crisis since I was born. It feels like, but it's a huge challenge right now. A lot of people did not go back to work in the industry. It's especially hard to find cooks. There's some data that was released last week. The restaurant hours on average, and this is US data, but it's being mirrored in Canada, have declined an average of 7.1 hours a week. And there's some restaurants like Denny's, for example, that are down over 30 hours per week. So that's a decline of 6 hours per day. We're seeing restaurants not open on Mondays or Tuesdays. We're seeing restaurants not open for lunch or stay open for dinner. It's really impacting the sector. Another trend that I think should be important to the people on this webinar is that local and sustainable food is becoming a key trend. That many chains are trying to do it. A lot of independent restaurants are trying to do that. So the Alberta food service industry is something that there's a lot of operators who would be looking to get local products and as many local products as they can. Other trends to consider: plant-based foods are becoming more and more popular and more common on menus. Specialty diets, right from vegan, vegetarian, um, lactose-free, gluten-free, all these sorts of things are becoming increasingly important and increasingly popular on menus. Global and cultural foods and mixing those cultural foods and infusions and the like are becoming more important. And consumers are demanding clean ingredient lists. That's something that fresh product, clean ingredients, no preservatives, and so forth is something that they want to see in the restaurants and food service operations that they patronize. I thought so. All these trends, I think the takeaway from that is, labor-saving products is something that food service operators would look for. Anything that can help them with their increasing cost of sales is something that they would look for. I think those are the types of takeaways that we're going to come back to a little bit later in this presentation. Thought we could talk about the key players in the food service supply chain. And I know Marguerite in the first session of going to market talked about this a little bit. I just want to expand on it a little bit. So there's the producers and processors. So these are those that are producing or processing food or beverage and creating products for food service operators, including harvesters, farmers, fishers, etc. And then the processors are transforming these products into other forms and products. So we talked about labor-saving products, cooks being very hard to find. So if you could provide cut vegetables, if you could provide, menu items, those sort of things, anything that would allow the restaurateur to be open with minimal labor or minimal skilled labor, allowing them to extend those hours that we talked about would be interesting. So those kinds of things. Co-packers, these are industry partners that manufacture or package products on behalf of their producer clients. Instead of a processor, you might choose to use a co-packer. They can be valuable for startup processors that need to, increase their production rapidly, or have the controls or systems that their existing facilities are not able to provide. So a lot of times when you're selling to the industry, they require certain certifications, traceability. If those resources and skills aren't available in-house, co-packers may be a way to go. Brokers. So if you have a product you're trying to sell to the food service industry, you can do the sales yourself, or you can go through a broker is another opportunity. So they sell products on behalf of producers, processors. They have relationship with distributors, and I'm going to talk about distributors in a moment, but they can help get your product listed. And they typically operate on a commission basis, and they charge anywhere between 5 and 20% of sales. And that range really varies by how many products they're carrying or including in their portfolio. Distributors, so they're the ones that warehouse the product and ship it to the food service clients. They can sell, they will have sales teams, so they will, but they literally have thousands of products. So expecting them to sell your product, unless it's a very, very high contribution product for them, is limited. So when we talk about sales strategies a little bit later on, we'll talk about that, but they will typically purchase goods from producers and processors at a discount. They have thousands of products, like I said, and to get a listing with a distributor, typically another product has to be taken out of the warehouse to add your product. So you've got to have, you have to show them that there'll be sales volume and they'll be able to move cases to secure a listing. So it is challenging to list with distributors. There's different types of distributors. There's broadline distributors, which will provide the vast majority of products that a restaurant will use, including non-food products like chemicals and so forth. And then there's specialty distributors that might provide just produce or meat or even just beef. So there's different types of distributors that you can use. Many restaurants are trying to move towards fewer distributors. They just don't seem to have the resources to place multiple orders, receive multiple orders, and process multiple invoices and so forth. So the big broadliners are I guess, supplying an increasing percentage of their food and beverage purchases. Another player can be group purchasing organizations. So these are organizations that they have a bunch of members. So it might be Restaurants Canada, for example. It will take their membership, and it might be an independent restaurant, and it allows them to take advantages of purchasing large amounts and getting those discounts. They're typically funded by membership fees, fees paid by product vendors. So that would be the food and beverage suppliers that are going, or some combination of the two. What's important to know is that members of GPOs, they're required to make a minimum percentage of their purchases from through the GPO. So I think the key point is, if they have to produce 80% through the GPO and you're not listed with the purchase 80%, sorry, through the GPO, and you're not listed with the GPO, you'll want to make sure that you're part of that other 20% and give them a reason that this is one of the things they'll purchase outside of the organization. And then finally are the food service operators, and there's a wide range of operators. There's commercial operators, which can be independent restaurants, branded or chain restaurants, and it could be full service or quick service restaurants. It can be caterers. The food service at the coast hotels, where Darren is, would be included as a commercial food service operation, and also a catering operation when they're providing food to the banquet halls. There's also institutional food service operators. So this would be education, higher education, K to 12. It could be daycares, it could be healthcare, and that could be hospitals or retirement residences or long-term care facilities. All provide food service. Corrections provide food services. And similarly, there's a bunch of different types of management styles in institutional food service operations. Some of them self-operate their food service. Some of them contract them out. In hospitals, sometimes the auxiliary or the volunteer organization will operate retail food services within the hospital. They can lease space to food service tenants. So they're all opportunities for procurement of food and beverage, and just understanding who they are and what it motivates them to purchase will help you determine what aspect of the industry that you want to target, or aspects of the industry that you want to target. I thought next we could talk about considerations that purchasers make and requirements that they make when they're buying food and beverage for their food service operations. One of the things that when I was talking about the trends up front, times are pretty tough all over. I think we're heading into a recession. We talked about food inflation, and I was talking with some colleagues earlier today, and they're reporting food inflation, the government, at about 10%. I think it's higher than 10%. They're being very selective with the basket of goods they're using, but that's a challenge. So they all work within a budget, and some of the institutions hospitals with inpatients, residents' meals and healthcare, residents' meals where they're students that are in a board plan in a residence dining hall, they will have a cost per day budget, cost per student per day, cost per patient per day, and they can't go over that. And it's just not the cost of food, but also the cost of labor involved. So, if they exceed their daily budget one day, it's got to come back later in the week. And these budgets, especially in the healthcare sector, have not increased with the inflation, and it becomes increasingly challenging for food service operators to meet these budgets. And because labor is so scarce and so expensive, they're looking for convenience products that can help them reduce labor, but the ability to pay becomes challenging. Commercial food service operators, however, they have more ability to incorporate high cost items into their menus, as long as consumers are willing to pay a premium price and that product aligns with the operators' vision and values. So times are tough right now, and we're seeing pushback from consumers, but when they do go out, they want to treat themselves, and if they see value in a menu offering, they're willing to pay a little bit more. Food safety. This is critical for all food service operators, and to get your product listed with a broadline distributor or a GPO, you will need to have some food safety certification. So it could be, if you're on a farm, good agricultural practices, and for the processors, they have to be HACCP certified. Anything sold in Alberta would have to be provincially inspected. Anything sold outside would have to be from a federally inspected plant. So food safety is very important, and that's why, if you don't have HACCP in your operation, you might want to go through a co-packer who has it, just to help get your product listed. So you must, any producer or processor that wants to sell the food service industry has got to have food safety protocols in place and make sure the certifications are met. This is really a factor. If you want to be in this business, you have to be able to meet the food safety protocols. Consistency is something that's important. So food service operators, they require consistency in their process, in the products. So if there's a recipe coming, it's got to be the same. The portion sizes have to be the same. Quality and nutritional content, especially for chains, have to be the same every time they order. And operators and distributors, they expect their, the availability to be 100% when it comes to their fill rate. So there's, if you're getting into the industry, you've got to make sure that your product's going to be consistent and the product's going to be consistently available. One opportunity, though, would be restaurants with seasonal menus or doing limited time offers. So you can maybe get into a restaurant during your season when you're harvesting or producing certain products and have those as part of it. But if you're trying to get on a menu for a chain, on a core menu product, you have to be able to supply it when they need it, and that's all year. Product volume. Sometimes smaller producers and processors don't have the volume that's needed for larger customers and markets. So if you're going through a broadline distributor for your sales or a GPO, that might not be an appropriate way to go for those smaller producers. They might go after food service operators would require smaller volumes, or work on increasing their production capacities, of course. But there's all kinds of restaurants out there now that are looking for partnerships with farmers that can tell a story about where these mushrooms came from or where this lamb came from. It's just down the road and whatever. And we'll get into relationships with farmers. So, you know, if you're a smaller producer or processor, that might be a route that you might want to go to target this industry. I've already talked about co-packers. They can help producers and processors increase capacity in their facilities, or they might use many producers to produce a product, and then, you know, help meet those certification requirements that we talked about. Smaller producers may want to work with aggregators such as co-ops or others that do shared storage and distribution if they want to service some of those larger markets, you know, going as a group, as opposed to trying to do it all yourself and grow too fast. I think it's important to talk about pricing the products. You know, I've been kind of painting a picture of gloom and doom of the food service industry right now. They have two major costs. The cost of their food and beverage, their cost of sales, and the labor cost. Both of those are increasing significantly. With the labor shortage, they're paying more for labor, like I'm sure everybody on this call is. So pricing products to sell is important, and I thought I'd just talk through some pricing strategies and help you think, you know, different ways that you can price your product to go through it. One sec. One the approach that you take when you're pricing will vary depending on what you're providing. You want to consider packaging, package size, and supply chain costs, which we'll talk about. We've already talked about brokers taking 5 to 20%, while distributors will mark up the product as well. We talked about in-resident and inpatient food services where there's a specific budget per meal day, and if they exceed it one day, you know, a lot of the long-term care facilities will have roast beef or a roast on Sunday night. Well, they've got to make it up throughout the week. So they have the particular budget. And for retail and catering food services, producers and processors may use market pricing. That you might want to look at similar operations menus. So one of the things, so you're looking at your menu and you see the cost of the menu item, you got to realize that that's about 3 times what they paid. They have a food cost percentage of about 33%. So about, they mark it up 3 times. And that includes everything that's on the plate, right? So that's, if you're selling the center of the plate protein to them, they'd also have a vegetable and a starch probably on that plate. And they might be factoring in a roll and butter. If it's a takeout restaurant, they will be factoring in the cost of the takeout container as well. So it gives you an idea, though, doing that math, you know, dividing by 3 from a menu price, and looking at what else is included in that cost helps you figure out what your pricing might be. You can also consider portion sizing when you're pricing, but you know, the supplier, so that's the producer or processor. You have to know what your cost is of the product you're doing, and the price will include a profit. If you're using a broker, and you might go directly to the distributor, but if you're using a broker, they're going to mark it up 5% to 20% for them. Distributors are going to mark it up somewhere between 20 and 30%. All other meal components, that's what I talked about, the rest of the plate. So if you're supplying that center of the plate protein, the vegetables and the starch will also be included. So, you know, the other thing, the operator's back door, they want to produce the entire meal for less than their average budgeted meal cost. And when the GPO is used, these costs are approximately 6.5%. So those really cost-conscious inpatient or residence meals, they get about $3 a day to spend on food. And retail, like I said, is about 1/3 of the market observed price in Alberta right now. So figuring out what your price will be, and if that price works for you, then you want to go ahead and sell to the industry. If that price isn't working for you right now, I guess you have to look at how to reduce your cost. And then you can go back and take a look at this market again, the food service market again. Preparing to sell. It's important that you understand who you're selling to. So when you're reaching out to a potential client or target market, you really have to understand what they're looking for when they're buying food or beverage. So, doing some research, they might have something on their menu or on their website talking about their story and what they're trying to do. And you want to try and match up the product you're selling with, their story. So there'll be some restaurants or food service operations where you're a really good fit and others not so much. You want to target the ones that you are a good fit with. Industry associations, you might want to approach them, and they'll have some good ideas on what different food service operators need. So it could be food service industry associations like Restaurants Canada or local restaurant groups, and it could be industry associations within for the producers and processors, Alberta Beef or the like. They give you intelligence on where you could go to sell your products, and really good resources to take advantage of. Many food service operators may be interested in almost any product. We have seen consolidation of menus where they've decreased menus a little bit, and trying to just react, coming out of COVID, having smaller menus and making the restaurant just a little bit easier to run. But they might require different pack sizes or packaging requirements. It's important to understand what it is they're looking for before you approach them. I already did that. So we talked about pricing, and then you have to figure out how you're going to sell the product. Do you have a sales team? Is it yourself that's going to go up and talk to like those local restaurateurs that we talked about that are looking at just selling local products? Are you going to go through a distributor? Are you going to sell through a broker? Are you going to approach a GPO? A combination of the above, but understanding what you're going to do and who you're going to sell to will help you develop your sales strategy. Are you able to provide the consistency that the food service operators require? And if the product's successful, will you be able to scale your operation to provide the product as they grow? So if you get in with a small chain and they keep adding restaurants and your product's an important part of their menu, are you going to be able to grow with them as they grow? And then the key thing is the food safety requirements. Do you have the certifications that are required of their distributors that they're using, or the GPOs that they're participating in? And traceability is a huge thing. Do you have the traceability that you can, if something goes wrong and there's an outbreak of foodborne illness, can they get back and you figure out where it came from and what happened? So it's really important to understand that and make sure you meet the needs of your potential clients when you're looking at these things. It's important to understand who's making the purchasing decision and how they're doing it. So it could be an executive chef, it could be a director of food services. Larger organizations will have purchasers that purchase everything for the organization. They might have specialized purchasers that just focus on food and beverage. Broadline and specialty distributors, they will make, if you're selling through them, you have to get into to talk to the right person there. And like I said, especially for the broadline distributors, if you're going to get a product listed, you've got to knock another one off the shelf. So you've got to come in with a reason for them to buy your product, and making them comfort that they're going to be able to move enough cases to give up that spot in the warehouse. GPOs will have purchasing or procurement departments. In restaurants, if it's not the chef, it could be the owner or the general manager that's making the purchase. I think you want to understand, what they're trying to offer from a food and beverage need, what their story is. So what their story is, they're trying to tell through their menu, and make sure that you can position your products to meet their needs and target purchasers that would see the benefit in your product. So it's not going to be everybody for most products, I guess if you're selling pepper, everyone's going to use a little bit of pepper, but for most products, you're going to have to try and target the person's making the purchase decision that will see the benefit of your product. And it could be, hey, I'm an Alberta farmer. I'm bringing Alberta products to your restaurant, buy local, sort of thing. And so I guess that's the end of my formal presentation. I'll turn it back over to Dolores.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Jeff, for your presentation. I'm going to call up our panel now, and our panel today is Jeff Larick, with Customer Market Manager with Prairies Region Gordon Food Service. We have Darren Drew, who's the food purchaser, the Coast Hotels, and we have Jeff Clark, and Jeff is consulting now in the food service area. So welcome, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, now I'm just going to get everybody to mute themselves unless they're talking, because there's some background noise happening here.
Thanks, Dolores. So my first question is for Darren, and can you tell us for your operation, are you following, before I do that, I should recap our definition before I ask you that question. So from webinar 1, I just wanted to remind everyone that when we talked about the commercial food service segment, we were talking about the establishments where their core business is food and beverage. And for non-commercial, we talked about the segments where food service is secondary to their core business activity. So now I'll go back to Darren and my question. So where does your operation fall, in a commercial food service or non-commercial channel? Oh, you're muted,
You're
Darren.
muted.
Being in a hotel, we're secondary. Of course, the hotel room or the guest rooms are the first priority for the hotel, and then again, food and beverage is the second priority to the hotel.
Thanks, Darren. So now I'm going to go to Jeff Larick, and Gordon Food Services. Do they operate in both the commercial and non-commercial food service segment as a
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yeah, we've got both segments that we're fully invested in.
Thank you. And for Jeff Clark, which food service market that your experience embodied as a supplier? You're muted. Sorry.
I apologize for that. Yeah, so we serviced both markets as well. So the multitude of chain restaurants as well as the non-commercial sectors as well.
Thank you. So that gives everyone a little perspective when you're thinking of your questions you want to ask all our speakers later. So going back to Darren, what encourages you to purchase or carry new products?
Well, what encourages us basically is the broker or the distributor will come to us with products that are new or whatever, new products online, and they'll show us the product. You know, one of the questions we first look at, or what we look at first, is of course the quality of the product. Then I guess our second question would always be the availability of a product. It's great to have see the product, like the product and everything, but if you can't get the product, then there's no use looking forward on that product. And it could be anything from roast beef to potatoes and vegetables. It just depends on the availability of the product, because you got to put it on your menu and you have to be consistent in your business practices. Whereas you can't today have it on the menu and then tomorrow say, I'm sorry, we're out of our product. We couldn't get it from our supplier.
Thank you. And so
can I jump in and ask a follow-up question to Darren?
Sure.
I think it'd be interesting for people to know how often you are approached by people trying to sell products.
Well, Jeff, it just depends. You know, before COVID, let's call it pre-COVID, probably, you know, I would get a call once every month or twice every month for a broker or a GFS GFS representative saying, hey, I got a new product or whatever the case may be. Are you interested in it? They tell me the product and I'd say yes or no kind of thing. And it just depends on if it fits within our scheme of our operation. you know. And our operation in the hotel is a little bit different than, let's say, maybe a freestanding restaurant, because we have restaurants, we have lounges, and we have catering, as you said earlier. So it has a broad, it could be a broad product where it could touch on both places, or it could maybe just touch on one. Again, it just depends. And it also depends on, too, the broker sometimes. Sometimes you build relationships with brokers, and the broker will come to you and say, hey, listen, Darren, I've got these 2 great products. You know, I'm trying to get them listed with GFS or Cisco or whoever the case may be. And, you know, can you look at them? If you're interested, I'm going to show, you know, 5 or 10 other people, and hopefully I can get it listed at GFS. And that's the key, is to get it listed with the main distributor. Because if you don't get listed with the main distributor, you're always trying to fall behind. Because if it's a special order item, then you're going to say, okay, is it going to be a week or is it going to be 4 weeks to get it? You just don't know. And GFS or the distributor doesn't know either. So that's what we look at when it comes to, you know, the brokerage end of it. Lately, of course, after post-COVID kind of thing. I know COVID's still kind of going on, but post-COVID, nothing right now. A few calls from the DSR on certain things, but really we're kind of right at the moment in limbo. And we kind of, if we see something or we need something that's different, we kind of contact our DSR and say, hey, listen, can you give us some information on this product, or what is the product availability?
And so since you used the acronym, Darren, I'm going to add a question I didn't have. Can you explain what your DSR is to everyone?
The direct service representative. So that would be like my GFS representative.
Okay, thanks. And so, so the bulk of your purchases are through a distributor. Do you have any flexibility on working directly with certain suppliers, and what percent would that be between how much products are purchased through a distributor and how much could be direct?
Well, we do have flexibility for purchasing. There's no doubt about it. We as a big company, Coast Hotels, we have an agreement with main distributor GFS on a certain percentage of goods that we want to buy from them. Now, saying that, we like to, of course, you know, buy from local establishments and things and businesses, so that we can also they can you know, have products sent to us in a timely manner. Like GFS is a main distributor, but they don't carry everything. And some of the things they do carry, they carry in case lots, and they can't break those cases. So we, as a business, are going to say, okay, well, we can take it locally and go to this business, and they can give us, and I'll just use something that GFS actually does, but it's an example. Let's say GFS sells strip loin only by the case, and I only need 2 pieces. Well, I'm not going to buy a case of 6 because my costs go up. So I'll go to my local distributor and say, hey, listen, can I get 2 pieces of strip loin? So it makes it easier for us, because again, we're not tying up our dollar to a certain period of time, and that could be any kind of product.
Thank you. And so my next question is, do you make the purchasing decisions, or are you involved in a team for purchasing, like from what kind of vendors you're going to work with?
Yes and no. Yes, I make all the purchasing decisions locally at the hotel, and no, for the vendors and things like that, yes, I do, and no, I don't. Coast Hotels, of course, has some contracts with certain companies, and they make some certain decisions on certain products that we carry. A prime example would be Starbucks coffee. We have Starbucks coffee in all of our Coast Hotels, and I could not change that if I tried.
Thank you. And so when someone's trying to get listed with the Coast Hotel, do you have like a vendor evaluation process, and what would that look like?
We do have a vendor evaluation, but it's not a formal evaluation. We ask certain questions, as Jeff elaborated earlier about, is things like food safety, certain protocols they have. Are they federally inspected? Are they provincially inspected? Are they HSAP? Certain things are important to us as a company, especially when it comes to let's say proteins and things like that. We like to only deal with federally inspected plants and things like that.
Thank you. And
And
so I think we talked about the consistency.
right.
So I'm going to skip to your lead times. How much advance notice do you provide when you're ordering, and how much do you need from the supplier to get it to you?
That's a good question. I mean, it'd be nice if our customers give us a lot of lead times to it at certain periods. I mean, we have in our catering division, a convener will say, okay, I'm having a banquet for 200, and then the banquet's on Saturday, and then on Friday they call and say, oh, it's not 200 anymore, it's 220. So lead time is a little bit different. So I get on the phone and I phone my supplier and say, hey, listen, can you send me 20 more pieces of chicken or 30 more pieces of chicken? So it's a little bit different that way. But we try to be proactive when it comes to lead times. And we say to them, okay, listen, we have a function coming up. We're going to need approximately this much amount of stuff. We noticed that you're carrying close to what you have. And they'll say to us, okay, listen, you should buy it now. We have it in stock, buy it now because it might not be there in a week's time. So it's a relationship of telling them what our business is and what they have and what they may or may not have at certain times. To advance notice of products and what we buy, usually we buy 2 or 3 times a week from our main distributor. And again, we know what we're going to buy. So the good thing about, let's say, GFS Gordon Foods, they have online ordering. With online ordering, you can look to see what you want, and they tell you right there if the product is in inventory or not and how many is in inventory. So it's a great tool to use as a buyer or as a business. So I can say, okay, I got it, I'm going to order it, boom, done. Or if I know it's something that it's out of the ordinary, I'll look and see, I'll go in there a week ahead of time and say, okay, are they carrying it? How much are they carrying it? So it gives me flexibility on how to purchase things like that. Lead time, unless it's something out of the extraordinary, that's a special order item, usually they have it in stock. And if they don't, then I approach them and find out when. And if I can't get it from them, then I'll go to my backup supplier.
Thank you. And so we talked about food safety, and so I was just wondering, with the Coast Hotels, are you working, because a lot of people are on new sustainability or social responsibility programs that you're also trying to match with suppliers?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we're looking at green sustainability for sure. If we can buy products, especially in our catering division, instead of buying a product that is packed smaller, we can buy it in a larger pack size, to save on, let's say, cardboard or paper, things like that for sure. We talk about ocean-wise food, fish and things like that. We try to buy that kind of stuff. So we definitely look at sustainability and social responsibility. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you, Darren.
I think that's a big thing in every business right now.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to Jeff Larick and look at the distributor perspective. So how do you typically find new suppliers for the food service market?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think there's a lot of growth when it comes to desire to be local, and there's a lot of local manufacturer suppliers that are certainly cropping up, and in turn there's a volume, a scale that we're definitely aware of, and trying to there's so many new suppliers with so many great things coming our way. How do you manage that influx of innovative ideas, great products coming to market in a way that is manageable? We know there's so many great suppliers out there that are doing so many great things, but our warehouses only have so much space, right? So there is a desire on our end to really start thinking about, okay, well, what are our customers saying? What is the voice of the customer, right? So we listen to our sales reps. Obviously, like Chef Darren said, like they're the ones that are they're listening to the chefs. They're the ones that are the ear to what's going on the streets when it comes to cool, innovative things. So we have marketing teams and merchandising teams at Gordon Food Service that get that information funneled up to them, and then we will we will reach out when we've heard loud and clear, hey, this product or this supplier is doing things that are different that we need to be ahead of, and we need to contact and get a relationship going. And besides that, like, to that volume conversation of vendors and suppliers coming up, we've adapted, I think, some of the noise, some of the rockiness that sometimes happens when, you know, suppliers are reaching out, they're calling our 1-800 numbers, they're emailing our general mailbox saying, hey, I've got these products. In response to that, we've created a new system. It's called Range Me, and it's a third-party solution. And what it is essentially, it's a self-service portal where suppliers can go. It's on our website, and they can actually say, hey, I've got this product, please contact me. And as our buyers are seeing a need for those types of products, they go into the portal and they can search and pull and make contact with those suppliers. So a little bit more functional than before.
That's great. And so when you're signing up a new vendor, is there a test period to see how well their product does in food service?
For sure, yeah. We typically, there's a test period. We call it a 90-day trial. Typically is what we do is we'll work with the vendor and we'll say, okay, we think we're going to need this much product, this amount of cases for this 3-month period, and we will agree to terms with that supplier to say, hey, that X amount of cases that we brought in, if it sells, great, we're going to order more, but if it doesn't, it's guaranteed and there will be a return required.
Okay. And then you just mentioned one of the new technology systems that you're using with vendors and suppliers, but you have a couple other ones. Do you want to just kind of highlight what other kind of new technology Gordon Food Service is using?
Yeah, I think I think where we kind of realize that, you know, our warehouses are not endless aisles. We needed to shift our mindset and say, hey, why do we need to stock the product in our warehouses? Why not be a conduit between the supplier and the customer, and just be the middleman essentially? So we've started taking more of an approach of the customer can use our ordering system to place an order for a product that's listed to a smaller vendor that we will send the invoice to, so the PO to, and the vendor will then receive the PO, and we will have already set up a third-party courier to manage the delivery of the product from the supplier directly to the customer, again, skipping the warehouse of the product. So we all go online and order stuff direct from all these online shopping places. That's kind of what this feels like from a customer lens.
Sounds good. Jeff Clark, did you have a question for Jeff Lark? No? Okay, I thought I had saw your hand. So then, Jeff, so what kind of packaging and pack sizes is the most common thing that GFS looks for?
So certainly, you know, we got to get the product from, you know, you're got to get the product from your door to our warehouse, and from our warehouse, it's got to get on our trucks along with probably 15 to 20 other customer drops on that trailer. And think about, you know, the rigors of that. And then it's got to get into the customer's cooler or freezer. There's requirements on packaging to ensure it can withstand the rigors of that supply chain travel. You know, and it's just the packaging itself, like we think about, you know, Chef Darren, mass feeding a lot of the times, or big buffets, big catering. The inner packings in those master cases preferably are more bulk style versus smaller inner packs. Retail's more inner pack friendly versus we want that bulk. I can't imagine opening up, you know, 500-gram packages of bacon in a 5-kilo case, right? We can't do that in the food service world. So we need to think about bulk packaging.
Thanks. And my last question for you right now is, what are some key things to think about if you want to be listed with Gordon Food Service?
Yeah, so think, there's certainly the ECCnet compliance. I go back to that ordering system that we were chatting about earlier. A customer can go online. They need to have data at their fingertips to make decisions. I think the days of the sales rep going in and handing out a piece of paper, here's the product that I'm going to sell you, slowly but surely are evolving into a more of a digital place where they want to see the product online and get everything they need. So ECCnet compliance for sure is a big piece of that. Obviously, good manufacturing practices, HACCP, all the things that we talked about earlier are critical.
Thank you. And so now we're going to look at the supplier perspective. So I'm going to turn it to Jeff Clark. And from your experience, what type of products did you sell into food service?
Our products were all custom. So we actually worked with typically multi-unit chain operators, and we built custom products for their menus. So we didn't actually push. We actually worked with them to pull, and they're all stirred foods. So if you can imagine producing products in a pot, if you could stir it, be it a meat sauce, be it an Alfredo sauce, be it a soup, be it a dressing, if you could, if it was viscous, if it would move, we actually could produce it, and we produced it specifically for end users.
Thanks, Jeff. And so what are some key areas that you focused on to grow your food service accounts?
The account selection process was absolutely critical in terms of what our capabilities were and what their needs were. So and also scale was an important piece for us. If we're building custom products, we couldn't be dealing with smaller independent restaurants. We needed to work with larger chains that had the buying power and the turnover of product actually. So we worked carefully with them to understand their needs. And many of our customers, we were working out 12 months, 24 months on their menu development and actually helping develop products with their culinary teams and their procurement teams to ensure that we had what they needed when the time was right, when the menu was actually published.
Thank you. And so is there anything specific about how you ensured your packaging and products were ready for those food service customers?
Well, a lot of it was, again, communication with our customers, so we understood and knew what their plans were and when things were going to come to market. Velocities were really important. Working closely with the distributors of those customers, whether it's GFS or Cisco. So we had an ongoing dialogue with those broadline distributors about volumes in the various distributor warehouses across the country. We were processing orders weekly, but they were mostly replenishment orders for products that were being used on a day in, day out basis in all the franchise establishments across the country. So having a really great working relationship with the distributors was important to ensure, back to Chef Darrell's point, like you need consistency of availability if you don't have it. So that was always a very important piece of being prepared. The other thing packaging wise is we work carefully with them on the number of turns or how much usage of a particular sauce or dressing or filling that might be used on a daily, weekly basis, so we could help with par levels and so that there weren't things going in the garbage. So we wouldn't put a product that was relatively low volume in a 10-pound pouch because they would get lost in the restaurant or would get thrown away eventually. So we would custom size the pouches for those customers as well. So the product was custom, the pouch size was custom based on the application and the usage at the restaurant level.
Thanks. And so as a supplier, are there some best practices when you're making those initial sales calls to get a new customer?
Well, I think homework. Somebody made the comment about understanding what your customers are dealing with. Websites, talk to some. If it happens to be a larger customer with multiple locations, just go out and talk to some of the people in the kitchen. Like, just get an understanding of what's going on. What are their issues? What are their challenges? What are they trying to deal with? So that when you show up for the sort of quote unquote sales call, that you're prepared and you have a good understanding of their business versus just to show up to basically push your product. if you have something that's not on the menu and will likely never be on the menu, to show up and try to promote it to somebody is probably not a great idea.
Thanks, Jeff. And so continuing on with the best practices thought, is there anything you'd recommend when you're working with the food service buyer, the chefs, the team on managing inventory, the quality, or bottlenecks that the food service might have that you can provide solutions for?
I think the key is communication. And I mean, it's a very complex business, complex industry. There's lots of moving pieces. And again, ultimately, everybody wants to be focused on the guest experience. So that diner that sits down and has a great meal is a result of many people's efforts. And communication is critical. So people need to know what's going on, when it's going to be there, and all those key pieces of information that enables ultimately the people on the front lines at the restaurant to be successful. So I think that's really important. And understanding that there's a lot of time pressures. Like, people in the industry are busy. There's lots going on in all facets, whether it's producers, the distributors, the people actually in the restaurants themselves, front of the house, back of the house. So being efficient, not wasting people's time, getting things done. When you say you're going to get them done, get them done. And I think that's really important. It builds credibility in the supply chain, in the complete supply chain. If you can be seen as a trusted partner in their success, it'll go a long way to building long-term partnerships. The other thing I'd like to add is, it's a long-term business. It's probably, in my opinion, a little bit different than packaged retail in that menus don't just change every day. Menus get developed and they're planned over time, and you need to be patient if you're fortunate enough to be able to place a product, sauce, a dip, a dressing, whatever it may be, on a menu. That's a result of could be 12, 18 months work to get people prepared and ready to go. So unlike where you may be fortunate to go to one of the big retailers and get a listing, and all of a sudden you're into 300 or 400 stores, it's a different situation in my opinion, and takes patience and time, and building credibility is really key.
Thank you, Jeff. And so now I'm going to go, whoever wants to answer the question first can. So the first one is, what advice do you have for building a strong relationship with a food service buyer, a distributor, or a vendor? And vendor means supplier for food service.
I mean, I could probably just elaborate on what I already said. It's be credible, do what you say you're going to do, bring value, bring innovation. Don't be sort of bringing a whole bunch of Me Too copycat things that really people go, I've already got 3 or 4 of those. And I think understanding who your real customers are and being really focused so that you have a good chance of success. Understand the competition is fierce out there from a processor standpoint, and you need to have something very specific, value, and you need to understand who your competition is as well. So you can show up and be seen as a value creator as opposed to a waste of somebody's time. So it's probably highlighting a little bit more of what I already said.
Thanks. Anyone else want to add to what Jeff said?
Yeah, I think what Jeff said makes sense. I think also it's building the partnerships with that vendor or that supplier, where it's a win-win situation for both. And in the long run, it's a win for the end user, which is our clients. And that's the key for any business. When I'm dealing with vendors or people, it's always who's going to come out on top. It's not always me, because if I come out on top, then someone's going to lose. So it's a win-win when it comes to dealing with our distributors. And yeah, that's the way we look at it, because it is a partnership. Both of us have to be able to make a living.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, let's move on to the next question. So are any promotions or specials that you look for in food service? Like, I know retailers are always asking, the weekly special, the flyer special. So is there any kind of promotions, like, maybe a story card or a little tip sheet for the wait staff? Any kind of thing like that food service looks for to help promote certain products on the menu?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look for things like that, but also you have in the food service industry, you have seasonal business. So in the different seasons, you have different things available to you. So again, customers are looking for seasonal things. Customers are looking for, what can I get in the summertime? Can I get those nice fresh raspberries or blueberries or strawberries? So you might want to do, something like a asparagus and strawberry salad, where asparagus is readily available in the summertime and strawberries is also. So, you kind of look at that kind of scenario when it comes to promoting specials or things like that. Really, we look at it seasonal. Yeah, certain things when we look for specials, where can we, as a company or a business, make a little bit more money? Can we get a special on strip loin that we can save money for the next 2 or 3 months? Knowing that in the summertime, beef is going to go through the roof because of barbecue season and everything else. So yeah, as a buyer, we definitely look for certain things at certain times a year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just from back to that digital conversation, we see 70% of our customers, so restaurants, are now ordering a lot of their product through our online ordering system. That's significant, and that is a trend that's going to continue to rise. So that space in that digital world for promotions is quite valuable, and it's very impactful. And we're seeing a lot of our suppliers reaching out to our merchandising teams to develop promotional activity in that ordering platform.
Thank you. And my last question is, are there any other best practices that you have for going to market in food service?
I think the stewardship and sustainability statements are critical. I think that is a huge expectation of our consumers nowadays, and it certainly is something that if you have a clear statement as to where you stand there, that messaging can really go a long way.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah,
Anyone else?
I'd like to jump in there as well. I think that on that social responsibility and sustainability, it's really playing a factor in not only getting customers to come to your restaurant, right? They want to go somewhere where the values align, but a lot of the people that work in our industry as well, they want to be aligned with a company that practices these things. So, back early in my career, I was working for Fairmont Hotels, and we were talking about, environmentally friendly stuff and everything back then. This is, the late 90s. We were really looking at it like, how are we saving energy bills in the hotels, right? No one had an idea on what sustainability really meant. And that's changed a lot. And I think, having those products, it's not only important to the restaurant to bring customers in, it's to secure staff who want to be affiliated with a company like that. And, changing, we're always changing. The targets on the single-use plastics that are coming up this December, where you can no longer manufacture them in Canada or import them. And then next December, it will be you can't use them. It's just one thing that food service operators have adapted to. They've adapted to a lot of things, and I think that's key. And I agree 100%. That's something that people are looking at.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, this is the part of the webinar where I'm going to turn it back to Dolores, and she will ask you the participants' questions. So Dolores, back to you. Thank you, Jeff and Darren. This has been great. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Marguerite. So our first question is for either Jeff Dover or Jeff Lowrick. Talk about the trend for distributors to be more selective and look for businesses and products that meet their business value and image.
It's probably a better question for the other Jeff, but I mean, image is really important. You want to associate yourselves with products that are going to advance your business, make your business more successful. So, aligning something that's got something that's positive from a social perspective, positive from a sustainability perspective, you're going to choose those a lot of times over another product that's the same that doesn't have those same benefits. So I think it's really important that you understand what the distributor or even a GPO that you're trying to list with, what they're looking for and what their goals are from a sustainability or social perspective, and try to align with that and say that you align with that. If you do, I think it makes it an important way to get your product listed, and that's the battle, right? You want to get listed with the broadline distributors to be successful in the food service industry.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think there's the other piece too, is that it is a journey that we're on. This is a train on a track, and we just can't cut it off and say, hey, we're all 100% sustainable items. We need to be realistic, but we are certainly on that journey in the food service world. We are a big part of that journey. Our customers are truly who are the feet on the streets that are giving us the need and the desire. It's a social responsibility conversation that they're having every day. Our specialists are having it every day as well with our customers, and it's something that we're all part of the chain. Our suppliers need to be doing these things, and they are, but it is a journey that needs to continue to move forward.
All right, thank you. And just a reminder to everybody on the webinar, if you have a question, please go to your Q&A symbol at the top and type in your question. I have one more question for whoever would like to answer it. Related to budget, can you tell how a supplier might understand the center of plate and overall plate costing?
I don't know if Darren wants to jump in on that. I have worked with chefs before that don't have, that didn't have. This is like old school. They would really have a good idea on what that center of the plate cost was, and it'd be like $1 for everything else. That's not the case, but I think you can probably figure that out. Yourself. If you're selling the center of the plate protein and you know what that cost is going to be per portion after you build in a broker, if you're using a broker, or the distributor's fees, you can look at what else is on the table, right? So if it's vegetables, you can probably have a pretty good idea on what those vegetables are going to be, or what that starch is, and what those ingredients are. So it really depends a lot on the dish. But a good chef will be able to tell you, right? My menu item there is $12. So it's $4 cost. My center of the plate is $2.75. So and my starch is this, my orc is that. But you've got to figure that out, right? If you come and your prices are too high, you're not going to get the sale.
Yeah, I mean, you got to factor in, the cost of the center of the plate, of course, what it's costing to put it on the plate, but there's other costs involved in it also. It's the guy who's cooking the plate, putting the plate together. So Jeff talked earlier in his presentation about the labor cost of it too. So you really kind of got to realize, okay, I can't make an item that's going to cost $14 and sell it for $16 because it's costing me an extra $5 to put it on the plate, so I'm going to lose money. So, that's the relationship between the cost of the center plate and the labor cost of it too. Jeff's 100% correct when it comes to chefs. Most chefs know exactly what it's going to cost on the plate without even looking to see what their costs are, because they've done it so many times. They know what the price is. There is going to be price fluctuations during the year and things like that. Right now, we're in the Christmas time, so we've got a lot of turkeys going on, and avian flu is hit. So the availability of turkeys is going to be at a very low for the food service industry. So prices are going to spike, and the supply and demand is not going to be there. So we know that, so we act accordingly and we price it accordingly to what it is. yeah, it's all about, you know, knowing what your costs are, building your costs. Some items are going to be higher in cost, some items are going to be lower. You might have a 38% cost on one item, you might have a 20% cost on another item. But hopefully at the end of the day, it all comes in where your budget meets, and everybody's happy and all the bosses are patting you on the back instead of kicking you in the butt.
Yeah, and I'm making sure I'm not muted. I'll jump in on that again, right? The labor is the other big cost. Food cost in Alberta right now, on average, and it varies, like Darren said, by you know, different menu items and different types of operator, is about 33%. So the menu item itself is about 3 times that food cost. The other big component about that is the labor, right? The restaurant business is a very tough business, and the margins that go through to the bottom line of a restaurant is you know, usually a single digit of the selling price. So you have to pay attention to the what you're purchasing. So the food's about a third of that price. Labor's probably another third of the price, or you know, together they might add up to 60% of your price. But you know, I remember one of my first days when I was at hotel school at Guelph, you know, when we did our food and beverage cost control course, the first thing he said was $1 saved in purchasing goes right to the bottom line of your income statement. So chefs are watching for that and making sure that, you know, they're not overpaying for any of the food that they're buying.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. There are no further questions right now. So I would like to thank you all very much for sharing your expertise with us today. It was very much appreciated. To everybody on the webinar, you will receive a short survey at the end of this webinar. Your comments will help us determine what other webinars we should organize for you. The survey should take you no more than a couple of minutes to complete. And as a heads up, we will be having another webinar on January 26th, 2023 on getting Alberta products on the shelf. I will send you the registration link in the follow-up email from this webinar. So I'd like to just say thank you to everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your day, gentlemen, and everyone else on. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.